Captain Miguel Rodriguez's final transmission cuts through static at 2:47 p.m., March 15th, 2023. His Cessna is being dragged toward the Amazon River by something so massive it defies physics, something that shouldn't exist, something that science buried 58 million years ago. It's Titanoboa, Jesus Christ, it's alive, it's pulling us down. The recording goes silent. 47 seconds of footage. That's all Rodriguez managed to transmit before his plane disappeared into the Putumayo River. 47 seconds that show a prehistoric nightmare rising from the depths. A serpent so enormous it could swallow a school bus whole. When search and rescue arrived 6 hours later, they found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no trace that a plane had ever existed, just perfectly calm water and something massive moving beneath the surface. But Rodriguez's footage had already uploaded automatically to his flight recorder's satellite link. 47 seconds of impossible reality that was about to shatter everything we thought we knew about what's hunting in our world. Because Titanoboa, the 50-foot apex predator that ruled these waters when dinosaurs still walked the earth, isn't extinct. It's hungry, and it's learned to take down aircraft. But his footage lived on, and it was about to tear apart everything we thought we knew about what's possible in our world. The video hit TikTok at 11:47 p.m. By sunrise, it had 2 million views. By noon, 15 million. By evening, it was approaching 50 million views and climbing so fast the servers were crashing. But here's what nobody noticed in those first viral hours. Here's the detail that should have terrified everyone: the displacement patterns. Marine biologists who ran the calculations in secret came up with numbers that made them question their sanity. Whatever was moving under that water was displacing 2,000 pounds of liquid per second. That's not a fish. That's not an anaconda. That's not anything that should exist in 2023. That's something from the age of monsters. And monsters, as we're about to discover, never really die. They just learn to hide. Serjan Coal Mine, Colombia, 2009. Dr. Carlos Jaramillo was having the worst day of his career. 6 months of digging, 6 months of finding nothing but rocks and disappointment. His funding was about to be cut. His reputation was hanging by a thread. Then his pickaxe hit something that shouldn't exist. Vertebrae, massive, impossible vertebrae that belonged to something that science said was impossible. When they laid out the complete skeleton 3 months later, the scientists just stood there in silence because they weren't looking at a fossil. They were looking at a blueprint for the perfect killing machine. Titanoboa cerriginensis. 50 feet of pure nightmare. But here's the part that made even hardened paleontologists lose sleep. This wasn't ancient history. The climate data showed something terrifying. The Amazon today is actually hotter than it was when Titanoboa ruled. The perfect conditions for cold-blooded giants to thrive, they exist right now. Right where the sightings are happening. Dr. Jaramillo tried to publish a follow-up paper about modern survival possibilities. It was rejected by every journal. His funding was mysteriously cut. His research team was reassigned. And Dr. Jaramillo, he stopped talking about Titanoboa altogether. But the math doesn't lie. The conditions are perfect, the prey is abundant, and something down there is growing. Amazon rainforest, 6.7 million square kilometers of pure hostile wilderness, larger than Australia. Most of it unmapped, unexplored, unknown. This isn't just a forest, it's another world entirely, where the rules of modern civilization simply don't apply. In 2019, scientists discovered 503 new species here. 503 creatures that have been hiding for millions of years. But they're not the only things hiding. In the deepest parts of the Amazon, where no human has ever set foot, where rivers appear and vanish like phantoms, something much larger has been waiting. And it's been watching us back. Local tribes have a name for the deep jungle, the place where death sleeps. They have rules passed down through generations. Never fish alone, never swim at night, never ever approach the black pools where the water turns still as glass. Because that's where she lives, Yakuma, the mother of waters. And she's been very, very patient, but her patience is running out. The whispers became screams. Livestock started vanishing overnight, not just fish or small animals, full-grown cattle, water buffalo, horses, gone without a trace, without sound, without struggle, as if the earth had simply opened up and swallowed them whole. Then the boats started disappearing. Fishing vessels found capsized in calm water. Search and rescue teams found the boats, but never the people. The river was keeping the bodies for itself. Local fisherman Jose Mendoza was the first to capture it on video. Shaky phone footage of something massive moving beneath his canoe. The footage lasted 37 seconds before his phone died. Jose made it to shore, but he was never the same. He stopped fishing, stopped talking, started drinking. 3 weeks later, Jose was found floating face down in the river he'd fished his entire life. The water around his body was perfectly calm, not a ripple, not a mark on him, as if he'd simply given up. But Jose's footage had already been uploaded, already started spreading, and something in those black waters had noticed. The sightings were accelerating. Captain Rodriguez's footage was different. Professional equipment, stable platform, crystal clear imagery of something that defied every law of biology. The wake patterns showed a creature moving with incredible speed and power, but it was the movement patterns that revealed the truth. This thing was hunting with intelligence. Frame-by-frame analysis revealed something that made experts go silent. The creature was following the flight path of the plane, matching its speed, staying directly below Rodriguez's aircraft as if it knew it was being filmed, as if it wanted to be seen, as if it was ready to announce itself to the world. The scientific community's response was swift and brutal. Mass hysteria, they declared. Misidentification, they insisted. Case closed, they commanded. But someone forgot to tell the creature, because the sightings didn't stop, they multiplied. River guides started refusing certain routes. Entire sections of the Amazon were quietly marked as navigationally hazardous with no explanation. Satellite imagery of key areas was suddenly classified, and research expeditions, they started coming back different. Dr. Sarah Chen led the first official expedition in late 2019. World-renowned herpetologist, veteran of dozens of Amazon expeditions, equipped with military-grade technology and a team of experts. They were going to prove, once and for all, that these sightings were nonsense. They found something else entirely. Day 3 of the expedition, Dr. Chen's team detected massive sonar signatures in the deepest part of the Putumayo River. Signatures that showed something living, something huge, something that shouldn't exist. The sonar readings indicated a creature over 60 feet long, moving at depths that should have been impossible for any air-breathing animal. Day 4, their equipment started malfunctioning. Cameras died, GPS units failed, communication systems went dark. Day 5, team member Dr. Rodriguez reported seeing glowing eyes beneath the water during the night watch, eyes the size of dinner plates, watching their campsite from the river. Day 6, Dr. Rodriguez was gone. His sleeping bag was found at the water's edge, perfectly arranged as if he'd simply walked into the river. No signs of struggle, no footprints, nothing. Dr. Chen called for immediate extraction, but the helicopter couldn't find them. Their GPS coordinates led to empty jungle. Their emergency beacons were transmitting from locations that didn't exist on any map. For 48 hours, the team was lost in jungle that had somehow rearranged itself. When they were finally found, Dr. Chen refused to discuss what happened. Her official report cited equipment failure and psychological stress. But team members who agreed to speak off record told a different story. They spoke of water that moved against the current, of massive shapes gliding beneath their boats, of feeling watched by something ancient and intelligent, of dreams where something enormous called to them from the depths. And Dr. Chen, she never returned to the Amazon. In fact, she stopped studying reptiles altogether. But the data from that expedition, that data told a story that made cryptozoologists around the world take notice. because the sonar readings were conclusive. Something massive was living in those waters. Something that matched the size and movement patterns of Titanoboa. Something that was very much alive. The indigenous shamans weren't surprised. They'd been preparing for this moment for generations. The prophecies spoke of a time when the great serpent would rise from the depths, when the modern world would finally face the ancient powers that never truly died. "She has been sleeping," explained Shaman Ayahuasca during a rare interview. "But the river is rising, the jungle is calling, and she is waking up." Local die-offs started accelerating. Thousands of fish found floating belly up in areas where sightings occurred. But these weren't normal die-offs. The fish showed signs of massive pressure trauma, as if they'd been crushed by something enormous moving through the water. Water samples from these areas revealed something that made biologists question everything. The water chemistry was wrong, oxygen levels, pH balance, mineral content, everything was altered in ways that suggested the presence of a massive biological organism. Something so large it was changing the ecosystem around it just by existing. But the most terrifying discovery came from underwater cameras placed by independent researchers. The footage showed the river bottom in areas where sightings occurred. What they found defied explanation. Grooves in the sediment, massive serpentine tracks showing where something enormous had moved across the river floor. The tracks were fresh, and they were getting bigger. Science said Titanoboa died out 58 million years ago, but science has been wrong before. Science said the giant squid was mythology until 2004. Science said coelacanths were extinct for 66 million years until fishermen proved otherwise. Science said life couldn't exist in the deepest ocean trenches until we found entire ecosystems thriving in places that should have been lifeless. The Amazon has revealed impossible creatures before. Jaguars thought extinct for decades. Tribes speaking languages that predate known civilization. Medicines that exist nowhere else on Earth. But this secret, this impossible survival of the age of giants, this is the secret the Amazon has been keeping for itself. And now something has changed. Something has awakened, something that ruled this world when it was young and wild and merciless. Maybe Titanoboa never left. Maybe it just learned patience. Maybe it's been waiting in the deepest places, the darkest waters, the forgotten corners of a world that thinks it knows everything. But what if we've been wrong about everything? What if the Age of Monsters never really ended? What if it just went underground, underwater, into the places where humans fear to look? Captain Rodriguez's footage wasn't just a sighting. It was an announcement, a declaration. After 58 million years of hiding, something was ready to reclaim its throne. And the evidence is mounting that it's not alone. Recent satellite thermal imaging has detected massive heat signatures moving through the Amazon's river systems. Signatures that match no known species. Signatures that suggest multiple large organisms moving in coordinated patterns. Not one creature, a family, a breeding population. The timeline is accelerating, sightings are increasing, the creatures are getting bolder, showing themselves in broad daylight, allowing themselves to be filmed. They're not hiding anymore, they're hunting. The question isn't whether Titanoboa could still be alive. The question is how many of them there are, how long they've been watching us, and what they're planning to do next. Because something that survived 58 million years, something that ruled an entire continent, something that perfect at killing, it doesn't just wake up for no reason. It wakes up when it's ready to hunt again. And the Amazon is calling them home. But when you see that footage, when you watch that massive shadow gliding beneath the water with ancient patience and terrible purpose, remember this: we are not the apex predator we think we are. We never were. We're just the latest species to discover that some legends never died. They were just waiting for the right moment to remind us who really rules this world. And that moment, it's here.